Welcome, dear friends, for the 7-minute meditation again on the subject of spiritual father and spiritual child. 7 lessons from spiritual father and spiritual child relationship. So, the 7 lessons from spiritual father and child is all from the book of Philemon. Did you know that there is one book out of the 66 books of the Bible, that one book is entirely dedicated about a spiritual father and spiritual child relationship or interaction? Okay, there are at least 30 points about spiritual father and spiritual child in the book of Philemon, but I am going to present before you only 7 lessons from spiritual father child. First of all, spiritual father hears about spiritual child. The spiritual father hears about the spiritual child, hears about faith, the faith of the spiritual child, love of the spiritual child. That's very important. Philemon chapter 1 and verse 4. Secondly, the spiritual father prays for the spiritual child. Prays. The spiritual father prays for the spiritual child. That's also very important kind of relationship that we read in Philemon chapter 1 and verse 6. We are studying together 7 lessons from spiritual father and spiritual child relationship, and we are in the 3rd point now. The spiritual father encourages. Spiritual father hears, spiritual father prays, and thirdly, the spiritual father encourages or gets encouraged. It's two-way. Chapter 1 and verse 7 of the book of Philemon. It's only one chapter. So the spiritual father is encouraged and says that I am encouraged by your love. And he encourages also. It's a mutual kind of thing. Fourthly, the spiritual father requests. The spiritual father requests the spiritual child. He says, although I can order you, but I don't want to order you. I don't want to take advantage. I want to request you. That's a very good attitude of Paul towards the spiritual child Philemon. This we see in chapter 1 and verse 8. The spiritual father requests and doesn't take advantage. Nice. The 5th lesson, 7 lessons from spiritual father dash spiritual child, and the 5th lesson is the spiritual father builds spiritual child. In fact, there are 2 spiritual children here. Philemon is one spiritual child, and Onesimus is another spiritual child which Paul got right in the prison experience. And now Paul is building a relationship between 2 spiritual children, and that's amazing, that we read in chapter 1 and verse 15 of Philemon. Sixthly, 7 lessons from spiritual father and spiritual child. The 6th lesson is the spiritual father trusts the spiritual child. Trust. That means the spiritual father says, I have got confidence in you. The way, Paul handles the spiritual child is very amazing. He says, you are my very life. You are my very own. And he says, I have confidence that you will obey me. I want to entrust you something. I wanted to give you some responsibility, and I have confidence in your obedience. Chapter 1 of Philemon, verses 19 and verse 21. Seventhly and lastly, 7 lessons from spiritual father, spiritual child relationship, and that is spiritual father hears, spiritual father prays, spiritual father encourages or encouraged, spiritual father requests, spiritual father builds, spiritual father trusts or has confidence, and seventhly and lastly, spiritual father feels free with spiritual child. To give a practical responsibility, sometimes we may not feel free, but here Paul feels free to entrust responsibility to Philemon about Onesimus. Practical help he is asking, and he says, even if there is anything I am willing to pay. Wow, amazing. Chapter 1 of Philemon and verse 22, feeling very free to share responsibility, because Paul was an old man. He could not handle his spiritual child Onesimus. Now he entrusts to Philemon, another of Paul's spiritual child, so that Philemon will take care of Onesimus. Wow, this is amazing. I am excited. May the Lord add His blessing upon this meditation. Amen.